When I do these interviews, I am always looking for fascinating, interesting people who have information that I think you should know about. And today I have a super special guest who is here to share about a life skill that all of us need to learn, most of us don't know, and that I think could be really useful and really helpful, especially in today's economy. My guest today is Patricia Stirnkorb, and we are talking about the art of barter. Pat, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I when I had that conversation with you and first learned, about your class that you're putting together and about the information that you share, I thought, wow, that is really not something that we know a lot about in America. I would love to know how you got started. Like, how did that become a thing for you?
I was trying to think back to the first time I started bartering. I think it was probably when I was a kid because I'm a talker and I've never met a stranger, so I would go up to people and talk to them and try to get them to do things. And I can remember when we lived in a little town in Ohio, because we're from Ohio, and the lady two doors down from me was playing her piano and her door was open, and I was probably 6 at the time, yeah, young. And I had Girl Scout cookies. I was selling Girl Scout cookies. So I had them in my wagon. I went around the streets and selling Girl Scout cookies. And I went up to her door and knocked on her door and told her I would give her 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies if she would teach me to play the piano. Well,
Oh,
it did not go over well with my mother when I told her she's going to give me piano lessons. My mom says, we don't have a piano. So I think that was first time. But as an adult, I think during my life, I don't know why I started with, but Rick and I got married young. And so money was always the issue when you're first married to begin with. And there were things that we wanted to do and couldn't afford to do it. So we decided that we were going to start looking at other ways. So Rick is a really good photographer. I do photography. I'm a writer. I've been a writer since I was 12 years old, 10 years old. And so those two skills are skills that we have been able to use in order to barter for people, other things that we want from other people. And I know, like, when our oldest son was probably 13 or 14, we wanted him to go to this advanced counseling system to get him motivated in his school studies. It was called the Institute for Motivational Development. And so I went there and talked to him, and it was like $70 a week, which to us at that time was a lot of money. And
yeah.
you need to probably do it for a year. Well, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do for you in exchange for this? And how are you going to do, what are you doing to market your business? So he said, well, I don't know yet. We're a new business here. And so I said, what if I write a letter, or what if I write an article for our local newspaper every week? And he said, and then what would you say? I said, you tell me what to do. I'll write the article, we'll put it in the newspaper, and I get my son's, classes for free. He's like, great idea. So we did it for like a year. And so that was one of the things I realized, that I have a skill that other people need. But
Hmm.
I think the key to bartering, if you have to have one thing that you need to know before you barter with somebody, is you need to put yourself in their shoes. And it's
Okay.
always about you and what you need. It's about what they need and what you can do for them. And so that kind of snowballed, and we have done everything. I mean, we have bartered for trips, we've bartered for vacations, we've bartered. I can't even tell you the whole list, like lots and lots and lots of things. But it starts with, looking at the other person first, especially
Hmm.
that you do business with. Because I've walked into stores and said, your pictures in here are horrible. Why don't you let me take some pictures for you, and you can do this, or this for me. Everybody's open for it. The three things that most small businesses, or independent businesses especially, need is time, money,
Right.
and marketing. And those are the
Hmm.
three things that you can offer them. So if you have any skills at all, you have the opportunity to be able to do it. We've done videos for people, we've done commercials for people. This The list goes on and on. So it's a matter of looking at it from their eyes and seeing, what can I do for them?
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you also bring up a really interesting thought, which is clearly you and Rick both have photography skills. And as you said, you also have skill as a writer. I know you've published books and other things like that. But how would someone sit down and look at what they do to identify something that might be a unique skill or a unique item? Because we're not used to evaluating ourselves or our skill set that way.
That I have a thing on, I have a website at writewordsmedia.com, WRITE, words media. And it has an assessment test on there, and it says, what are your skills? And it has like everything. It's from, somebody that can read, which pretty much everybody can, to somebody that can build models. But there's everything
Mm.
in between. If you have a hobby that you do, I have a lot of people that have said, well, I'll barter for you. And I've bartered for jewelry. I was able to get my jewelry redone. But people have skills as hobbies a lot of times, and they don't realize that other people don't have those skills. I started baking cakes. That was probably even before that. I took a cake decorating class, loved doing cake decorating. I have bartered so many cakes for everything imaginable, wedding cakes.
Wow.
So anybody who has a skill, if you bake, you're a good baker, then you can go to places that need, bakery goods, into stores, in the little individual stores. I've had people that have come back to me and said, you know what, I went into my local grocery store and I saw the guys all putting the stuff up on the shelves after they've worked all day. And they offered to help them stock the shelves. And the guy's like, yeah, what can I do for you? Well, I'll trade you for meat.
Mhm.
Matter of asking, because that's what people need. They need time. They need extra energy, lots of times extra help. They don't have the money a lot of times to pay for somebody else to do it. So small business owners get stuck doing everything.
And I think some of it also, though, has to be overcoming a sort of cultural sense of shyness.
Yes,
Because, for example, I've traveled to the Middle East and barter is a way of living there.
it is.
They sort of look annoyed if you give them the first price they ask for, because to them it's like part of the social exchange.
It is.
How do we learn to be more comfortable with that idea of even just making an offer? The answer could be no, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But you have to learn to make the offer. How do we learn to do that?
I think the biggest thing is value yourself. Once you
Mhm.
realize what skills you have that you
Yeah.
can somebody else, and then start with people that start with businesses that you go to on a regular basis. I started with a guy in Fairfield, Ohio, and he used to do my oil changes all the time. And I went in one day, and there was a mom in there with little kids, and they had nothing to do. And I said, you know what, I have a bunch of books. I will bring you in some books, and we'll make a little bookshelf here for your kids, and you can do my oil change for free for the next 3 months. He's like, great.
Mm.
So I just took my books and took them in there and made a little shelf that he already had, and made a little library for the kids. So that kind of thing is like, those are no brainers. We have things that people need, but we don't value ourselves. And I think that's probably one of the biggest keys, is that you think everybody has the same skills you do, and they don't. Whether it's baking, whether it's reading. I had a grandma who traded somebody to clean her gutters for sitting down with their children for 2 hours while they went out to dinner, and she read to them.
Mm.
So it's those are the kind of things we don't think about it. And we don't want to ask somebody, because it's like, well, they're going to think I can't afford to do it. Okay, get over yourself. Don't let pride
Mhm.
get in the way. We have bartered for windows, for air conditioning systems, for vacations. Literally for 45 years, we never paid for a vacation. And that's the honest truth. Like, over and over again, I could tell you the stories of what we bartered for, but it's a matter of asking somebody else what they need and what
Mhm.
did they do. They can come to you and say, well, I want you to do this. And you say, okay, what can I do for you instead? Asking.
And I love that it starts with thinking about the other person
Yes.
and valuing yourself, like two very strong, positive places to start from. That's
Yeah.
really, really important.
It is. And I think really the most important of them is looking at their eyes of what they're seeing, because we bartered for our son. I think one of my son, Eric, and when he got married, we bartered his entire wedding. I didn't pay
Wow.
his wedding except for Nikki's wedding dress. That was it.
Yeah.
We got his catering done for our rehearsal dinner, even from our local meat market, who we redid his pictures. We redid,
Mhm.
and we did the whole entire reception at a really awesome place that had just opened. It was a golf course, and they redid their whole clubhouse. And so we went in there and said, hey, I'll help you with this. Can I make your new brochure? I'll put your sales pieces together. And I do have the skills to be able to write. I know that, and it's a good skill. But you know what, most people know how to write. Most people know how to do something that they can do. We bartered the entire reception there. Her flat
Yeah.
bartered everything that we did, we bartered for.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So when people, let's say someone sits down, they say, okay, I've gone through your assessment, I've identified these things that I can do. How do you build that sense of trust, and how do you learn how to create a fair exchange? Because it's also, I imagine, pretty easy sometimes to have a lopsided exchange.
It is. You're absolutely right. So that's where your evaluation of yourself comes in. You have to say, okay, my evaluation, I can do this, and it's only going to cost me $20. So what are they going to give me in return? Well, you're not taking into account that that's something you had to learn. That's something that you have the experience for. That's something that you have done. That's worth more than $20. So
Mhm.
looking at what it is. If you were selling it, let's say, for example, we've done photography forever, and we did a lot of wedding pictures. We had a photography studio for a while. We did, class pictures and senior pictures and on and on and on. And we had to look at it and say, okay, well, if we were going to do a wedding, it's worth about $2,500, and we're going to give them, X amount of pictures in the end. This is before the digital age even came out, but you figure out what it would cost retail, and then if you change retail for retail, that's the best way to do it. So what your retail value would be of what you're trading, and what somebody else's retail value is for what they're getting, for an exchange. A couple of weeks ago, I was in getting my nails done, and the lady that was right before me was in the chair, and she got done doing her nails. And so that girl said, okay, and what are we doing today? And the lady reaches down, and she had a little cooler with her, and she brought out 2 roasts and a pound of hamburger. And she owns a cattle farm. And
Oh,
so she
wow.
did it for her nail job. And I thought, I love that because again, that was her valuation. Probably the roast was $12 or $15 a piece, or 20, and then a pound of hamburger. And she got her nails done for $45. So retail for retail, that's the best deal. There are some things though, like the lady who did, read to the kids for 2 hours. How does she evaluate her time? Or how do you teaching somebody something? What is your evaluation for that? So that's a time sometimes where you have to just say, okay, I need this done, and this person can do it, and I don't care what it was going to cost and what I'm going to have to give them back. And then you do it. So
And so it sounds like communication also is the key. There may be a little bit of a back and forth to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and has a clear understanding of what the exchange is.
yeah. And if it's somebody that you haven't dealt with before, and you get into big bartering situations, because we bartered for our whole house, windows and doors. And when you get to something, then you want to have it in writing. You want to have something in writing, say, this is what we're going to do for you, and this is what we're expecting you to do for me. And if you do it a little bit at a time, if it's going to be a long project, then you make sure that you're both doing things at the same exact time.
That
But
there's a timeline, sure.
it's much easier than you would think about. Like our vacations, we went to Dale Hollow Lake, which is in Ohio. What's actually, we were in Ohio, it's in Kentucky and Tennessee, and we wanted to get a houseboat. So the first year we went there, Eric was a tiny baby, he was 5 months old, and we had a little boat, and we stayed in a cabin. But we saw these houseboats, we'd never even seen it before. I'm like, oh my gosh, we want a houseboat. So we went to one of the docks and said, what can we do? We want to make a trade with you. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? What can you do? And I said, well, we want a week on a houseboat. We'll take an off week at the end of the season. We don't care when it is, when the rates go down, and we will give you a new brochure, and we'll take pictures of your whole entire dock for you. He's like, I'd love it. So we did. We've done the things like that on their websites. People now is all media. If you can do anything social media, it's a skill that so many people don't have. So it's a really good thing to have. So look at them from what they have and what they need and what you can do for them.
Yeah, and that's such a good point too, is just really being open-minded and being flexible about what you have to offer or what you're willing to receive in
Exactly.
exchange.
Yeah.
That's such a great point.
And you have to be flexible on it. Sometimes I might say, well, I'm really not willing to do that, but if you could do this, I would do it. And then no big deal. It's all in the art of negotiation.
Ah, that's great. Well, so I have one last question for you, Pat. It sounds like you've done some really amazing things with your willingness to communicate, to think of the other person first, and to know what your skill set is. What role is it that you think barter can play in helping to build like a community or a support system, especially now when a lot of people are, struggling a little bit, the economy is maybe not so great. What role can barter play to help support everybody in that?
A lot. I think if you're in a community, there are barter groups that are nationwide. And the thing about it is, if you get in with one of those, they charge a fee for it. You put the money, you would say, it's like, okay, so I did our dentist through it, and my eye doctor and other places, but then the group charges a fee for it. So if you the deal without going through another person, a third party, you're better off. But if you look in the newspaper, there's a lot of times that people will have ads, and they'll say, we'll trade for. That starts your barter. You can look in the newspapers, local papers especially, and you can start bartering. Once you get into a community of it, then the people realize who you are. But go to the people that you work with first. The people as your guy who changes your oil, and at the meat market, and at the local grocery store. When you start with those people first, it builds that community. Somebody just went in and had her sewing machine fixed, and the guy's like, she got ready to leave. She paid him for what it was, and she said, would you be interested in bartering? I've got another sewing machine. He said, I would love to barter. What do you do? She said, I make jewelry. He said, oh, I could get my wife a piece of jewelry for our anniversary. It was a perfect deal. But you have to ask. And you have
Yeah.
to say, this is what I would like, and what can I do for you in exchange? And I think that's the biggest thing is value yourself, know what you're worth, and then reach out and get the community started. If you don't have one, start a web page with it. But there's a lot of it on the internet where you can find in Craigslist, they have a section of
Mhm.
trades, and you can go. There's a book out, a wonderful book. It's called The Red Paperclip. And it's written.
Oh, I read about that. That guy who traded a red paperclip and got all the way up to a house.
That's exactly right. It's a great book. It's very funny, filled with lots of comedy and an easy, quick read. So anybody
Yeah.
who's thinking about bartering and haven't read that book, because it's a hoot. It's really, really cool.
That's astonishing.
Yeah.
Wow. So I know you mentioned that you have a class. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about it?
Yes, so this is a class. It's going to be a 2 hour class online. So you can take anytime you want. It's divided into 4 sections. So 30 minutes each, because I know people's attention spans are not what they used to be. And it goes through all of the things. I have a lot of handouts and a lot of things that go along with the class. So there's an assessment test. There's a 10 dumb reasons not to barter, which you need
Oh,
to print out and hang up because it's got everything, all the excuses that I've heard. And then we really go through, when I taught the class live, we go through exercises of what you're going to do. How are you going to talk to somebody after you've decided what your skills are? How can you find a bartering partner? How can you find out what somebody else needs? How easy is it or how difficult to make a good barter that's an even trade? So it has
hmm.
information in the class. It's a 2 hour class. I'm almost finished with it. I hope by December 1st it'll be online. But it's a matter of changing your perspective. Once you change your mindset, when you go into a store and say, what could I do for this store? Maybe it's organizing. Maybe you're a good organizer of your kitchen cabinets and you walk into a store and there is a mess. So talk to them and say, I was going to get this, but would you allow me to straighten your shelves? I think I have a great idea for how to. You would be surprised how receptive most business owners are. It's a matter of asking. And what
Yeah,
can you do for them?
that's amazing. Well, Pat, thank you so much. You've shared so much incredible information, a lot to think about. And again, I love that really it's about building community, thinking about what the other person needs, and then being confident in yourself and what you have to
Right.
offer. Like
And
you said, we tend to disregard our own skill sets so much.
and right now our economy does pretty much suck. We have a lot of things going on in the world. I mean, think about it. But if
Yeah,
you have skill to be able to barter, if you had no cash, if our cash system collapsed, even if it was a temporary thing, not saying that it's going to, and hopefully it won't, but let's just say that it did, what would you do? How would
yeah,
you, how can you survive and thrive by bartering? Because you can find somebody, somebody who raises chickens, or somebody who has beef cattle, or somebody who does whatever it is that you need. Who can? There's lots of people who can. They can
right.
kinds of vegetables. They have a garden. It's amazing what you know of other people that you don't think of as a skill because you don't need what they have right now. But when you
Sure.
list of what they have and what you have, it's a win-win for everybody.
That is such a good point. Well, Pat, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. It has been really wonderful talking with you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And for everyone who is watching, I'm going to put the book down below. I'm going to put a link to Pat's website so you can go take her assessment test, learn what your skills are. And also, I'm going to encourage you to sign up for her class and learn how you too can participate in the art of barter. And remember, folks, in addition to this valuable skill that I think we all need to learn, we want to take time every day to make it a healthy day. Bye,
Absolutely.
folks.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, that was so much fun.
I
That
hope
was
they go
great.
good. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really is fun to barter. It's a
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing too is I think you're so right that so many of us don't necessarily think about what we have. Like I know when we lived in Vermont, we had a hunter who lived across the street, and I at the time baked a lot. So I would bake bread and make jams and things, and we would trade for venison.
right.
But at a certain point, you just kind of stop doing that.
You do.
And so learning how to get back into it.
I think pride is a big thing because people don't want people to think that they don't have the money to do it. We changed dentists in Ohio, and our dentist retired after many years of taking care of us, and we had to find a new dentist, a totally new dentist. So somebody had recommended a lady, and I said, "Well, I'm going to go see her." I wanted to interview her, basically.
Mm,
Do you do caps? Do you do fillings? All the kind of things that we needed.
sure.
And so I went to her website first, and it was horrid. This has been like 6 or 7 years ago, terrible website. And so I made an appointment with her, and I went in and I said, I went to your website. It's terrible. And she said, She said, she said, do you know how much they charge me to keep that up every single month? I said, I have no idea, but I could do a lot better than they're doing. Can I write the contract and we'll switch, we'll trade. You can take care of our teeth. Rick got a cap. We had 2 or 3 fillings. For 6 years, we took care of her stuff. I still write things to her website now, and we're not even living there. So,
Yeah,
if you know how to write, if you know how to, I mean, we've literally filmed commercials for people. You go in and, I mean, you just do what you can do, and people don't realize what their skills are. They just don't value them.
that's amazing. Well, I think this is going to be a very interesting video. I think a lot of people are going to like it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. And who knows, maybe when we're back next May, we'll actually meet up.
That would be great.
Now, thank you so much. Tell everybody I said hi.
Thank you so much. Have a great
All
day.
right.
All
Take
right.
care. Bye, Pat. In order to make sure that we are in compliance with federal regulations regarding bartering, I would like to read the following information. These are the federal guidelines about barter. Bartering is the exchange of goods or services. A barter exchange is an organization whose members contract with each other or with the barter exchange to exchange property or services. The term barter exchange does not include arrangements that provide solely for the informal exchange of similar services on a non-commercial basis. For example, a babysitting cooperative run by a neighborhood. When you engage in a barter practice, the IRS does require that you fill out documentation as if you received payment and that you pay taxes on those services. You can learn more at https://www.irs.gov/tax topics/TC420. I will put that link down below. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.